All right, let's begin. I hope I am audible and welcome back after a long break. So, this is going to be our third lecture on T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I hope the screen is visible to you. If not, please open your mic and let me know. So, look, up till now we have covered up till here. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floor of silent seas. In the previous two videos, we have completed up till here. Now, here there is a very curious reference to the play Hamlet, and you will see that Hamlet will be recurring as an image, as a concept throughout the poem. Uh, for instance, in Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2, there is a dialogue. For you yourself, sir, should be old as I am, if like a crab you go backwards. So, this stimulating madness and the address to the old courtier Polonius over here is being referred to in a very different way. All right. Now, the concealed allusion in these lines uh, present an antithesis to the romantic escapist yearning. I'm extremely sorry. It's the same one students who are continuously enrolling and therefore the notifications are coming up. I'm extremely sorry. Please give a minute. Their batch was recently created and therefore they are still joining. Their classes have just begun, so you know they are very excited. So the concealed allusion, which over here is there from Hamlet, kind of shows us that the uh, these lines present an antithesis to the romantic escapist yearning, because there was a Victorian song. Okay, there was a Victorian song called "O for the Wings of a Dove." And Eliot works up an antithesis of this very song in these lines. Now let's continue from there. And the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or lit malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. In these lines, once again, there is the cat imagery. You see, the afternoon is now being compared to the cat. The evening is being compared to the cat. Like it sleeps so peacefully. If you ever see a cat sleeping, it sleeps so peacefully. And sometimes when we pet the cat, we smooth its uh, fur with long fingers as if someone is smoothing the afternoon and the evening with his or her long fingers. And here there is a reference to a movement which was congruent with the time called Impressionism. If you read about Impressionism, you will hear about a painter called Claude Monet. Claude Monet painted a picture called Impression Sunrise. And if you look at that painting, there you will see that it is a picture of a sunrise scene, but the specifics are not given. The impression is only created. And Eliot desperately and deliberately does not give us the proper specifics of how the afternoon behaves and rather gives us impressions. Because if you look at Catherine Mansfield, T.S. Eliot, a little bit of Joseph Conrad, a lot of James Joyce, you will understand that these people are dealing with impressionism. Okay. and Impressionism was the norm of the time. And look, then he continues with the imagery: asleep, tired, all it malingers. Malingers means shows a paining expression. So the cat is either asleep, or it looks tired, or it creates a face where it shows a kind of pain. So as if the afternoon and the evening carries the general mood of the age. So it kind of carries and conveys the general mood of the age. There is a German term called Zeitgeist. You can call it Zeitgeist in English as well, but it's primarily called Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist means the kind of literature, the literary spirit of an age. And if you look at the modernist English Zeitgeist or even the modernist Zeitgeist, you'll see that these three words are very important for the modernist poetics or the modernist polemics, because in most of the works of modernist literature you find that the characters are either asleep, they're tired, or they malinger. That is, there is a sort of dissonance, a kind of distancing impact. And it is this distancing of the physical, the spiritual presence, which is very important for the modernist poetics of the modernist polemic. Stretched on the floor here beside you and me, and just like a cat often stretches on the floor beside you and me. But look here, there is no cat. It is the afternoon and the evening. So the evening was up till now spreading up against the sky, and now it is stretching on the floor as if the evening is settling. There is the downward movement. So as the evening goes on, it kind of settles down beside you and me. So look, in the beginning, if we go to the very beginning of the poem, then we'll see that. Uh, Wait, yeah. Let us go then, you and I. The you and I image is being repeated. When the evening is spread out against the sky. Now, as I said, the sky, the magnificence of the sky is being projected, is being pitched against the meagerness of the eye. But look over here, the dynamics have changed. Let me come down to here. Look, the evening is now settling, it's stretching on the floor, and it is here beside you and me. And then look, he questions, therefore, should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? So the tea, cakes, ices, these are the external facilitators of a party, because this is a party scene. So it is the external facilitators. Now, if you read a novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald called The Great Gatsby, you'll see that there is a lot of dependence, a lot of references to such parties. And the modernist dictum or the modernist discourse focuses a lot on the social gathering, the social uh, existence of a human being. That is what is very important in the modernist polemics. So there, the references to these external facades of human congregation becomes very important over here. And look, should I, after tea and cakes and ices, all the external facilitators of public gathering, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? Why does he call the moment to its crisis? What is the crisis? Prufrock wants to propose to this lady, and the assorted what should I say, anxieties, the assorted anxieties of Prufrock kind of push this moment to its crisis. That is, if you want to propose to someone, anyone, you feel that there is a rush inside you, and that is a crisis to you. And then look, he goes on into a biblical pattern. What happens when you are in anxiety, when you are in a crisis? We often pray, right? We often pray, we often ask God for guidance, we often ask help from the divinity. You will see that it is not, say, somebody does not feel that much religious, but still, when we are faced with a crisis, we often tend to go to God. We often tend to pray to God that save us, help us. And look, therefore he says, but though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here is no great matter. No, but though I have wept and fasted, I have wept and prayed. Now, this is a reference to the Bible. Okay, this is a reference to the Bible, especially the second book of Samuel. Okay, uh, chapter 1, verse 12. And the verse runs something like this: they mourned and wept and fasted. They mourned and wept and fasted. Now, this kind of gives us a reference to the Bible, and it also repeats in chapter 12, verse 22 of the same book, where where the Bible says, "I wept, I fasted and wept." So there are two references in this book of Samuel. But what is very important is that why does Eliot give a biblical reference in this line? One reason I have already given you, because when we face troubles, we turn to a kind of religious source. We turn to a kind of Godhead for some form of salvation, for some form of comfort. That is one reference. But another thing is that Eliot is preparing us for this next line. Though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter. What does he mean? Now, there is a reference in the Bible of a story. The story is of a certain person called John the Baptist. Okay. John the Baptist was decapitated and his head was brought into the court of King Herod by his daughter Salome. Okay, King Herod loved Salome a lot because she was his daughter, and once during a festival, maybe on Herod's birthday, Salome presented a brilliant dance. Now Salome had fallen in love with John the Baptist, who rejected her, and when Salome asked for, when Herod was very happy and he asked Salome that why don't you ask for a gift, she wanted the head of John the Baptist. So this story is told in the Bible in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verses 17 to 29, and also in the Gospel of Matthew, in the book of Matthew, sorry, uh, chapter 14, verses 3 to 11. Okay, now you'll see that there is a lot of similarity between these lines and the references to Prince Hamlet. Now, when I come to Prince Hamlet, I'll talk about those similarities. But Eliot came across this story in one very special book, which he held very close to his heart. The book was Jules Laforgue's Jules Laforgue's book called Moralités. Okay, now look what happens is that he says, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter. Now, here Eliot kind of follows Laforgue's uh, devices, and in between these devices, he uses this section in parenthesis. Now, one of Eliot's very signature moves is to make the serious and the trivial go hand in hand with each other. That is, he deliberately plays with the high culture references and low culture references. And here we see that in between references to the Bible, to one's spiritual salvation, and a reference to the Bible of a story, he is putting in these three words, grown slightly bald, as a joke. So this mixing with high culture and low culture, this mixing of high culture and low culture, is an imitation of one of Laforgue's devices. Laforgue very consciously did it. And this is an apologic diminution of Laforgue's technique, which he uses in a parenthesis. Okay. Now look, I am no prophet and here's no great matter. This line is very significant. Why? Because Amos, when he was addressed as a seer, as a prophet, Amos, when he was addressed as a seer and a prophet, and he was ordered by Amaziah. If you do not know your Bible, then it's very difficult to understand Eliot. When Amos was addressed as a seer or a prophet, was ordered by Amaziah not to prophesy at Bethel, the king's court. Amos said that I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was an herdman and a gatherer of sycamore fruit. And over here, Prufrock's apologetic admission of weakness and inability to continue in this vein, in this manner, is going through in the following lines. Look, he says, I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. So, a personification of death is the eternal footman. You have all studied your rhetoric, so I do not need to show you what is personification. Now, the eternal footman, a footman is like a valet or he's like a valet who takes your coat and your hat at a ball. So the eternal footman is there as if death is the eternal footman who is ready to hold your coat and your sneaker And Prufrock is growing conscious about his mortality. So, the theme of mortality and transience of time and life, these also become very important issues for Prufrock because he is a middle aged man and he is not as young as you or I am. So, what happens over here is that he is very conscious about his mortality and the transience of time and life. And time and again, Eliot keeps on referring to a metaphysical poem, to his coy mistress, where the sole theme is the transience of time and life. Had I but world enough in time, this coyness lady were no crime. Remember? So, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. So, he is summarizing, he is deliberately summarizing his entire situation. He was afraid. So up till now, he was deviating from accepting his fear, from acknowledging his fear by using words like crisis, faith, power, dare, etc. But now he is summarizing his entire situation. And this eternal footman is a reference to the heavenly footman from John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. I'm sure you have heard about Bunyan and Pilgrim's Progress. So this is a reference to that. And then look, he's moving on. But before I move on, let me ask you, is there any question from this section? Go through it once. Let me know if there is any question from this section. Please let me know. Then we will move on. I'm not in a hurry. Trust me, I'm not in a hurry. We have ample time to finish our syllabus. First, let me know if there is any question. So I guess there isn't. If there is, you know how to ask. So let's get back. And would it have been worthwhile, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll an overwhelming question? And look, Prufrock is still suffering from doubt. Prufrock is still giving in to his doubt. And therefore, he keeps on questioning, would it have been worthwhile after all? So he's still questioning the the validation of his uh, proposal. After the cups, the marmalade, the tea. So you can see that how he is looking at the small details of the party so that he can escape the greater question. You will see that if you are faced with a problem, say you have to tell your parents something which is very difficult to talk about, or say you have to uh, propose to someone which is very difficult to do. So what do you do is, when you cannot say what you want to say, you keep on beating around the bush. And right at those moments, we tend to take notice of the things that are around us. So he is looking minutely at every detail that is there to find. Among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me. So look, he is deliberately associating the uh, sorry, something is wrong. What is going on? One second, there seems to be something wrong. My pen. What just happened? Anyway, my pen is not working, so let's read. Among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten up the matter with a smile, to the universe into a ball? Now, what does Eliot mean over here by to squeeze the universe into a ball? Here, there is the reference to his coy mistress. Now, remember, let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. Now, this reference at the close of to his coy mistress is a very important one, as the poet urges his beloved to enjoy the love with him urgently and intensely, and Marvel provides the most allusion for that. But Eliot couples that allusion of to his coy mistress with one uh, line specifically from a book. The name of the book is The Symbolist Movement in Literature. It is a very important book. Okay. Uh, the Symbolist Movement. What the hell? Ah, it's back. Chalo. What's this? Fine. So, squeeze the universe. Sorry. What is wrong with it? There is a book called The Symbolist Movement. Yeah. Literature. This is one of the key books of modernist thinking. It is by Arthur Symons. And in this book, Eliot found a very significant line. What was that line? The line was, in Laforgue, sentiment is squeezed out of the world before one begins to play at ball with it. Page 112 of my book. I'll write the quotation over here so that it helps you. in Laforgue, sentiment is squeezed out of the world before one begins to play. Okay, so Eliot might have had these lines, this line in his mind, and what happens is that uh, there is another line which is very significant, uh, which you should remember. There was a book, okay, a very important one by a thinker whose name was Henri Bergson. Henri Bergson. Henri Bergson's book's name was An Introduction to Metaphysics. The book was published in 1903. And here, Bergson describes life as a succession of psychological states, memories, and roles. And then he says, a continual rolling up like that of a thread on a ball, for our past follows us. It swells incessantly with the present that it picks up on its way. So, basically, what happens over here is that, according to Bergson, our life is like a ball. Okay, imagine there is a ball and you tie a string to that ball. Okay, and as you roll the ball keeps on taking in the string. So he says our life is like that ball with that string attached. And what the past does is it kind of uh, weaves the yarn larger. So it becomes larger. With time, our experiences grow on us. Our psychological states, our moods, our altogether lived experiences, they keep on growing. Okay, so there might have been a reference to that as well. Now look, to say I am Lazarus come from the dead. Lazarus is a very important figure in the Bible because there are two Lazaruses in the Bible. Okay, one, the first Lazarus is the brother of Mary and Martha, the dead man whom Christ brought back to life. Okay, now his story is told in John uh, chapter 11, verses 1 to 44. So, this is the first Lazarus. His story is told in John, verse 11, chapter 11, verses 1 to 44. Now, this Lazarus did not say anything of his experience. Look, he says, to say I am Lazarus, come from the dead. But this first Lazarus does not say anything. He does not share his experiences. The second Lazarus is the beggar who is associated with the rich man called Dives or Dibs, however you pronounce this. Okay, in the parable told in Luke 16, that means chapter 16, verse 19 to 31. When this Lazarus died, the poor man went to heaven. That is, both Lazarus and Dibs both died, and Lazarus went to heaven and Dibs went to hell. Now, Dibs wanted to warn his five brothers what hell was like, so he asked Abraham if Lazarus could be sent back to tell them. But Abraham refused and said, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. So, even if he sent Lazarus, no one would listen to Lazarus. Excuse me. Because Lazarus is not a prophet. And look, he brings us back to this same line: I am no prophet and he has no great matter. So Eliot has this very cryptic way, very self-reflexive way in which he constructs his poems, in which he constructs his lines. Now look at this line. Come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. This part is being repeated. Now to tell all will be as to tell all will be to do as Christ promised of the Holy Ghost. That is in John chapter 14 verse 26. Christ said that he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance. So the first tell you all is I shall teach you all. The second is I shall bring to your remembrance, if you follow this John reference. But there is also a Hamlet echo in these lines. For instance, in Hamlet Act 3, Scene 2, line 140, there is an expression: the players cannot keep counsel, they'll tell all. So, we are all players in this great play, and we cannot keep counsel and we'll tell all. But here, some of us come back as Lazarus, the wise ones, who teach and bring to remembrance. If you read Eliot's plays, especially the later plays, you'll see that in Eliot there is a figure called the guardian. Now, Eliot believed that we are all in a sort of darkness and we are blind. It is the guardian figure or the guardian figures who can see with one eye. So they cannot completely see the right from the wrong, but they have some sense that differentiates the right from the wrong. So all of us are players. All the world's a stage. Remember that Shakespearean line from As You Like It? So we are all players, but some of us become guardians. Okay. So they are half seeing, half blind. Some of us are guardians. With experience, perhaps we become guardians from players. That is the very basic difference that remains. Now, look, if one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. Now, this is a very problematic reference because, you know, when I taught you Romanticism, I taught you about Plato's cave imagery, the cave metaphor. Now, here, I believe that Eliot was consciously referring not to Plato's cave imagery, but to a but to something which is very close to it. Friedrich Nietzsche, had a book called Thus Spake Zarathustra. In this book, the central character gains wisdom, he gains knowledge on a mountain top. And then he decides to come down and discuss what he has learned. He wants to share his knowledge. And then he has come to a town and there is a circus going on. And when Zarathustra, he asks everybody if they want a part in his wisdom or not. They are more interested in the tightrope player, the one who balances on a tightrope. They are more interested in that act of jugglery, of acrobatics, than the wisdom that Zarathustra has gained. So Prufrock, if we see him as a seer, as a guardian among the players, because of his advanced age, because of his doubt, his dilemma, his anguish, his anxiety, his angst, then Prufrock is a Neo Zarathustra. And Prufrock comes to share with his wisdom to tell you all, to tell you all. The others, they say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. So look, there is an antithesis to tell you all in not at all, not it at all, not I meant at all. So between to tell you all and that is not I meant, what I meant at all, that is not it at all, as if there is a cross. If I connect this with this and connect this with this, what do you get? A cross? A nullification on the one hand. Also, if I reverse it like this, then this is a Christian cross. Prufrock has to bear this cross of rejection every time he wants to proceed. And therefore, look, the all image, the all, this word keeps on recurring in the next sentence. And would it have been worth it after all? Is it clear? Hmm? Is it clear? So we will stop here today because I do not want to burden you with Prufrock. It's a heavy text. We'll go slow. We'll finish in time. We'll have a long time to finish our syllabus, so don't worry. Okay? Have a good day. And you'll get the recording and I'll put this on YouTube as well. Because the other two lectures are on YouTube and many people have asked me there to put these videos as well. So I'll put it there. Okay? So have a good day. Thank you so much.